Today, we have a great honor to have as our guest Leo Silva, who had a brilliant career in DEA in the United States and in Mexico. And he ended up his career in Monterrey as a supervisory agent with DEA. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here today.
Leo, you are a reference for the people that want to understand the new challenges that Mexico and the United States are facing. The latest news is the case Cienfuegos. Cienfuegos is the former Ministry of Defense of Mexico. He was arrested in the United States. The United States accepted to extradite him in Mexico.
Well, the latest news is Mexico concluded their investigation, or what they call an investigation, and they exonerated him, meaning that they found him completely innocent of all charges, which I find quite surprising. I mean, the DEA, and for people to understand this, the Department of Justice and DEA not going to bring charges of this magnitude on a person that's so high profile like General Cienfuegos without having evidence. I mean, there's no prosecutor in the world, I think, would go that far or step out on a limb without being sure that there's enough evidence to convict him in a court. So when the United States released him to Mexico, I was really surprised because that has never happened before. At least in my career, I've never seen that happen before.
What I found very bad is that all the documentation about this case has been leaked by the Mexican government, putting in risk all of the life of the people, of the agents that working on this case and other people involved. So what's your idea? Why AMLO is doing this? Because actually it's doing like the other presidents, just cooperating with drug trafficking, or because he wants just to show up a different policy and it was just to end up to the drugs, to the war on drugs?
Well, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, I believe he's shown many examples throughout his presidency of how he's protecting narcotics organizations, such as Ovidio Guzman, who was captured by the military in Sinaloa. And AMLO intervenes and tells the troops to stand down and let him go. That's a perfect example of him helping out a narcotics trafficking organization. And then like a month later, he comes back and has a reunion with Chapo Guzman's mother and shakes her hand and has this nice reunion with her and everything. I mean, I've never seen a president of any country do that, so soon after letting the son go. Also, now this policy here where he has taken our immunity.
Exactly, it is the latest news. Not only the immunity, not only stripping the immunity, but also, if I'm not wrong, the Mexican government required that DEA agents hand over all information they collect to Mexican government, and require any Mexican officials they contacted to submit a full report to Mexico's Foreign Relations Department, which is huge.
That's crazy. I mean, you got to ask yourself the question: who benefits from this? I mean, do Mexican citizens benefit from it? Because DEA in Mexico, we're guests of the country. We don't have any powers there, and since when I was in Mexico and DEA, we didn't have any diplomatic immunity. So by them saying, "Hey, we're going to take your immunity away," it's really not going to hurt us because we were already working that way. When Camarena was working in the 80s and a lot of my colleagues in the 90s, we didn't have diplomatic immunity. So, okay, so what's new? That's not going to hurt us. But you have to ask yourself, who does this benefit? The Mexican citizens, the citizens of Mexico who are trying to earn a living and just get by, or the traffickers? To me, this points to the traffickers. It seems like this benefits only the traffickers, this policy.
The traffic is booming. Fentanyl is booming. There are some data. The annual drug statistics for 2020 show fentanyl on the rise across Mexico. And the Ministry of Defense reports that more than 1 ton of fentanyl has been seized. And just to have comparison, in 2019, they were just 222 kilograms seized. So the boom is impressive. Why, in your opinion, fentanyl is booming?
Well, there's many reasons. First of all, the main reason is profit, because in the past, Mexican organizations used to source their cocaine from countries like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, even Bolivia. And with fentanyl, they don't have to rely on them anymore, because they bring the product in from China and they produce it themselves here in Mexico, and they send it directly to the United States. So they cut out the supplier. They're their own supplier now, so the profit is greater. The profit margin is greater for them.
And it can travel undetected. It's more easy. It's easier to smuggle fentanyl undetected because it doesn't smell.
Right. Also, what they're doing is they're putting fentanyl into loads of heroin to make the heroin a little bit more powerful, which is very dangerous, because fentanyl, for those people that aren't familiar, the equivalent of a grain of salt of fentanyl is enough to kill a person. So you can just imagine, I mean, a ton quantity of fentanyl, that's crazy. That's enough to kill an entire country pretty much. So, but aside from that, it's the profits that these guys are making from the fentanyl and methamphetamine, which we call crystal meth. All these products are profitable for them, because they don't have to rely on Colombian or Peruvian or Ecuadorian cocaine. Here, they cut out the supplier, and they're their own supplier now.
We know that the principle comes from China or India. Does, in your opinion, the presence of Chinese in Mexico could be more and more relevant in terms of fentanyl production, or they are away from it? They just send the active principle, and then you can do whatever you want.
That's correct. They're a key figure in this whole thing. Without China, I mean, it would be very difficult to produce methamphetamine. Just to give you some history, back in the late 90s, that's when Mexican organizations started producing methamphetamine with chemicals brought from China. And when I was in Guadalajara in 2001, we were starting to see it increase more and more and more. And all the chemicals being used to produce it were coming from China. So this has been going on for way more than 20 years. So
but what
now
I'm
it's
asking you, to your knowledge, there are Chinese drug traffickers based in Mexico working with the Mexican cartels to produce fentanyl, or they just smuggle into the country and that's it?
I'm sure they have some interest there in Mexico, just to oversee maybe the delivery of the chemicals. As far as them being active in actually distributing the drugs to the United States, I believe that's the cartels doing it, and the Chinese are just overseeing maybe the delivery of the chemicals. But as far as negotiating prices and distributing it to the United States, I think that's purely a Mexican organization thing.
What we can expect in the next years, in your opinion, and other drugs, other chemical drugs, more critical alliance, for example, with Ndrangheta. There is already an alliance with Ndrangheta, but maybe stronger. What's your prediction, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think, unless we take the United States and Mexico take huge steps in trying to stem the flow of these chemicals coming into Mexico, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, there's a lot of people in the United States that are addicted already to methamphetamine, heroin, and it's all coming from Mexico. There's a friend of mine who's very active on Twitter and LinkedIn. His name is Jason Jones, and he studies this issue extensively. And according to his statistics, Mexican organizations are producing a ton of methamphetamine on a daily basis. That's 30 tons a month. That's, just do the math. That's an incredible amount of methamphetamine all coming to the United States. And
so maybe
as you said before,
expect it in Europe too, because as you know, we have a lot of heroin in Europe coming from Middle East. Fentanyl is just the beginning. We are not facing a true crisis, a true emergency. Do you think that in the next years in Europe, we can expect smuggling from Mexico of fentanyl?
I think so, especially if the profits are worth it for the Mexican trafficking organizations. Absolutely. I mean, whatever makes them money is what's going to motivate them. That's what their motivation is. Money, money, money.
And do you think that they're able to have a logistic to do this?
Absolutely, they're doing it already. I mean, I know they're supplying a lot of cocaine to Spain, obviously to Italy and other European countries, even Australia. So yes, I do see they do have the logistics in place already to do this.
You are a part of history of a DA, and you didn't meet personally Kiki Camarena, but in a certain way, your life, your professional life crossed his life. Why?
Yes, that's correct. The Camarena incident happened in 1985, and I didn't join DEA until 1987. But even then, in 1987, tensions were very high, and there was aspects of the investigation that needed to be investigated here in the United States. And I investigated a person who had gotten arrested with Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo in Puerto Vallarta in '86, who actually had ties here in South Texas. So I was part of that investigation, and we were able to get some
what's your idea about this case? Because as you know, it's an open case. There was a Amazon series recently, very denouncing the role of CIA, of other DEA agents. I mean, what's your idea about this case?
You know, it's first of all, it's a very unfortunate case. It should not have happened. It's very tragic. You know, I never got to meet Agent Camarena, but you could feel, you know, the tension. You know, in Mexico, even when I was there in 2001. As far as the series, the show, The Last Narc, you know, there's a lot of mixed feelings in DEA. There's a lot of, I believe, misinformation in that show. That I think maybe it was just taken to the Hollywood context and tried to make a little bit more drama. But you know, the show ruffled some feathers with some old people in DEA that are retired now, that work the investigation. So it's very controversial. I think there's going to be some.
He did a brilliant job when he was in Guadalajara. Kiki Camarena did a brilliant job because he was really able to discover a lot of things. I think about the marijuana, no? The marijuana yes. Ranch. I mean, it was really brilliant. He paid.
Yes. Camarena, I would say, was, you know, for an agent working in Mexico, was one of the first agents that actually made a significant seizure, such as a marijuana farm that he located. I mean, as far as the DEA agents, you know, Mexico always kind of put us on the back burner, but Enrique was one of the first agents that actually made a significant seizure in Mexico. So that he's a pioneer. Obviously he's a hero.
You have a huge experience in Mexico. I know a lot of Italian agents working in Italy, in southern Italy, in 'Ndrangheta stuff, and sometimes they say the feeling is that you are fighting a war, and you know that you maybe gonna win a battle, but the war is always a step away from you. This is the same feeling for DEA agents in Mexico, or
that's very true. It's a good example. You know, you just fight the war on a daily basis, and you just keep going and going, and you know, the war will take care of itself eventually. Probably never end. Like, we're never going to stop drug trafficking, but if we do our part for this day.
Yeah, because the huge problem in Mexico is that you have a cooperation between politicians and drug traffickers. It's one of the few countries in the world where this collaboration is very clear. I mean, we have in the past presidents or relative of presidents involved in drug trafficking. I mean, it's very hard to find the good guys, isn't it?
It is, but we find them. You know, you find ways to locate them and work with them. And you know, one of the things DEA agents do, we're faced with challenges every day. And this thing with the diplomatic immunity, that's just another challenge that we're going to have to overcome. And DEA agents are really notorious for overcoming challenges and making the impossible possible.
How many DEA agents are operatives now in Mexico, approximately?
I'm not sure. When I was there, I think we were maybe about 30. There's small offices in every.
All around Mexico.
It's not big.
All around
It's
Mexico.
not big. In my office in Monterrey, we had, it was myself and 3 other agents. So every office is small. See, but what we do is we work with the Mexican government and Mexican officials, and that's where the force multiplies and we're able to be effective.
You are writing a book, and I'm very curious about it, about the data leader Miguel Trevino, aka Z40. I mean, the guy was really a big boss, a big mobster, and all his family, if I'm not wrong, was involved in drug trafficking. You were able to track him for how many years?
Oh, wow. Well, when I got there in Monterrey in 2008, the first thing my boss told me is, Leo, your job here is to take Miguel Trevino down. And he told me that because Miguel Trevino was involved in killing a lot of government officials from Mexico that were close to us. So he had already killed some the Special Investigations Unit chief that we worked very closely with. So we had a motivation to catch him. And also the president at the time, Calderon, gave a directive to the military to put all their efforts into catching Miguel Trevino. So at the time he was based in Monterrey at the time in Nuevo León. So it came down to me. So me and my agents and we were able to work with Sedena and Semar and federal police and not only DEA but the U.S. Marshals and ICE and FBI. We all kind of united together to try and locate Miguel Trevino. We finally did in 2013. So it took us 5 years to really.
Do you think that now the most dangerous cartel is Jalisco Nueva Generación? Still the cartel of Gulf? What's the situation now, in your opinion?
No, the cartel de Jalisco is without doubt the most powerful cartel right now in Mexico. They have control of most of the ports in Mexico. Why do they have control of the ports? Because of the China connection. If they have control of the ports, those chemicals will be coming in and it's going to be easy for them to access them. So yes, they're very powerful and they use violence to get whatever they want. And they are the most violent and most powerful cartel right now in Mexico.
Did you also work on El Chapo case or just?
No, the Chapo case was worked by some other agents, the agents that were located in Mazatlan and Mexico City. So in Monterrey, we focused on the Gulf cartel and the Zetas. And also
what's your idea? Because, around these mobsters, you always have a kind of Hollywoodian environment. Do you really think that El Chapo was the enemy number 1 for Mexico, or actually there are more dangerous mobsters, free and free to work and free to operate?
Well, right now, the most dangerous ones are within the cartel de Jalisco. They're the ones that are operating right now, and they're very dangerous. And Chapo was dangerous, but there's guys that were more dangerous. For instance, Miguel Trevino. He and Chapo were at one time at war, and they were trying to kill Chapo. So there's some very dangerous traffickers out there, and they use violence to get what they want, whether it's a distribution route or control of a territory. Violence is a means to an end for them.
Just to end up our interview, after having spent all your life in DA, what's your idea of bad and good, of honesty and how can I say, greed? I mean, what's your how do you think about the world after such a long experience working with against the most dangerous criminals in the world?
Well, I can tell you right now that evil does exist. I have seen it firsthand. That people have no idea of how evil some of these men really are. And there is some good out there. Obviously, there's good, and I personally feel that there's more good than evil out there. But we do have to watch out for some of these evil folks, and believe me, they do exist, and it's very frightening. What I learned in Mexico is that life is short, very short. I had a lot of friends killed down there by some very evil people. So you just learn to appreciate life and appreciate what you have, and give thanks for another day that God gave us here.
I really thank you, Leo. Thank you.